Hello and welcome to the Mandy Institute, our Q&A Conversation for Exploration series. I'm Paul Robert, the Executive Director and President of the Institute, and along with my wife, Laura Lee, the Director of Research, Education, Outreach, and on behalf of our Board of Directors, our advisors, volunteers, and supporting members, we want to thank you for joining us today. The Mandy Institute is an independent, nonprofit research organization committed to researching consciousness and the human experience following the footsteps of our founder, anthropologist Dr. Felicitas Goodman. Our focus is reflected in three main areas: experience, education, and exploration. We respect the path of academic balance, the creative pursuit of science, while at the same time advancing, conserving, and restoring a direct experience of the deeper human connection to all of life. And as an educational institution, we take an open approach. And so we invite scholars in related fields to help broaden the scope of our own work and exploration. That's why we call this Conversation for Exploration. And on these weekly Sunday discussions, full spectrum of topics from neuroscience, anthropology, archaeology, astronomy, philosophy, psychology, mythology, shamanism.
It's a big world out there, and we go
art,
exploring.
Theater, much more, from the arts to the sciences.
Yeah.
You're welcome to visit our website at kuyamangeinstitute.com. All of our presentations are free. And as a nonprofit, of course, we invite you to become a supporting member. And we want to thank you, the community members who continue to support the mission of the Mandy Institute. Today, we want to understand this world of trekking. Now, trekking's more than just a day hike. It involves a long, challenging, focused hike in wild natural environments for multiple days. It can be done off hiking trails, and whether it's a high climb or an incredible stroll across a stunning landscape. And whether you do it for health benefits, for the adventure, or just for the pure enjoyment, spending multiple hours on a trail, climbing around boulders, ascending hills, gives you a full workout. It improves your strength, your agility, your cardio fitness. This can become a pilgrimage, including searching for some spiritual significance, kind of like a vision quest. Some like to think of it as a form of meditation, a walking meditation. Done properly, a feeling of being more centered and peaceful, more energized and focused, nourished and supported. And this is not just for those in their youth. Many people, we talk to people in their 70s that enjoy trekking.
Well, I'm interested in the physiological shift because our work is all about a natural occurring physiological shift. I'm interested in the capacities of the human animal. And this is certainly stretching a capacity that we no longer much use today in our modern era. But we had this capacity for long distance travel on foot. And it's interesting how, the migrations that have happened. How did we migrate across the globe? Those were some long treks.
Yeah.
And what about persistence hunting, where we humans can actually exhaust an animal that is good at sprinting to get away. But if we pursue and we can read tracks, we can carry water, we can self-monitor ourselves and rest as needed. And we can outdistance animals who their hearts explode, or they faint, they get heat exhaustion, right? As a form of hunting from old. And also there were mail couriers of old in the days before electronics and the Pony Express and there were no boats available, right? People were experts. There was an elite courier organization that traveled long distances in very short time to deliver important messages of state and others. There's records of these, and traveling a couple hundred miles a day running to get messages together. So what is that physiological shift? And so we have a couple here today who are long distance Thru-Hikers. And they're here to tell us about that inner game, the physiological shift. How many calories does it take to support walking 20 miles a day for 5 months at a time, right? That is interesting. What is the mental game to handle that? How are you alert to your environment? Because there might be danger around the next corner. There might be weather to be aware of. What about boredom? So they talk about just this this fascinating, the logistics, the practicalities. How do you organize this?
Yeah.
And even they say they have a support team in their moms. We'll be introducing the moms a little bit later on to talk about, you know, how is it? My mother would not support this. Those mothers do.
Yeah.
So how do you live a life of adventure? Right? How do you game up for it? How do you organize your life around it? What are your values? How do you go the distance? And so there's some fascinating stories here to be had, as well as a slideshow. They have a slideshow for us about
the
where
images
they've
are
been,
incredible.
their maps,
Yeah.
how many miles they've accumulated. So I want to introduce Mandy Redpath and Kevin Savage. They are this couple who we met at Thanksgiving that our good friends Bev and Dawn organize every Thanksgiving, the whole huge vegan community in Sedona. And we got to sit across the table from them. And I was just like, wow, guys, tell us more. In fact, share this with our whole community, because this is not everybody's doing this. We're interested in people who live extreme and interesting lives, or do the extreme and interesting research, because it helps show us something about all of us, right? You are exploiting a human capacity that not many do in the ways that you do it. So welcome, good to have you here.
Hey, thank you for having us. We're really excited to come on today.
Well, I'm impressed by the fact that you scoped out a place to get internet. You're there in your van. This is your travel van. This is your home, has been for many years. And you actually had to scope out where you got good internet to plan ahead. So these are one of those skill sets, right?
Yeah.
When you're on the road and you're in constant new environments, you are scoping out everything around you. But hi, Kevin. And how did you two meet on the trail?
Yeah, we did meet on the trail. We actually met back in 2015 while hiking the Continental Divide Trail. Only it was just for a moment. We were hiking in opposite directions. And in one of the trail towns, we happened to come across each other and spent what we called a 0 day together, getting to know each other. And
which means 0 miles for the day. So it's a day off.
A day off.
And yeah, by the end of this day off together, I knew there was something special in this girl, and I worked up the courage to ask for her phone number. And
yeah, we stayed in contact.
And then we continued our own hikes going in opposite directions. We had a task to complete, but we stayed in contact for a year until she convinced me to hike another trail, the Pacific Northwest Trail, the next year. And then the rest is history. We've been walking together ever since.
I know that there's an issue with internationally we use different terms for different things. We're calling it hiking and trekking. I know I was looking online and I was saying, whether you're in Australia or whether you're in England or whether you're, different parts of the world have different names. But ultimately, what is it that you do? What is your life?
Yeah.
I guess our driving versus adventure, right? And so in the winter, we tend to adventure a little bit more from a vehicle, but in the spring, summer, and fall, we prefer to be out on foot, exploring at a much slower pace. And so our main goal is to just be outside as much as possible and experience everything the world has to offer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not a bad gig if you can arrange it. So Mandy, you've been at this since 2008. Kevin, you from 2014. What was the point at which you said, oh, to heck with modern life in its usual configurations, I'm going to go do this? What was let's start with you, Mandy. You were the first one to convert. What prompted that? Because that had to be a major stumbling point that you would leap over.
Maybe I'll start on this one.
Sure.
I quit life a little bit more. I was bartending in downtown Sacramento at a really nice nightclub, and it was a great gig, but every night was the same. And I blinked my eyes and 8 years went by, and I was like, wow, nothing has changed. I've been living in a dance club every single night for the last 8 years. And somebody was mentioning the long distance trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and I was just planning on riding a bicycle across the country. I just needed to get out. I don't know why, I just had this call. And then when somebody mentioned the Pacific Crest Trail, I was like, wow, I don't have a bike to do this, so I can walk. And so I decided to walk the Pacific Crest Trail. And when I did that, I just fell in love with the lifestyle of waking up with the sun and walking throughout the day, the rhythm of walking at about 3 miles an hour all throughout the day, and just having my own thoughts, and then going to bed when the sun went down. And when I came back to work after that first year of through hiking, I went back to the same bar. They were nice enough to give me the job back, and I went back to that night after night in the nightclub, and I knew it was not for me. So I saved as much money as I could in those 6 months that I was there, and I left again. And that time they weren't bringing me back because I told them my passion was to go long
Please
distance.
don't hire me back. Yeah.
And I wasn't going to be back in the summer ever again, and that didn't work for their system, and I understand why. But I've been continually hiking since. For Mandy, it was a little different.
I joined the Syracuse University Outing Club in college back in 2007, and I learned to backpack through them. And at some point, I got it in my head that I wanted to do the Appalachian Trail. And I was studying abroad in Spain the summer of 2008, and I heard about the Caminos de Santiago, and I thought, well, that's a really good like test hike. It's only 500 miles. Like if I can do 500 miles, clearly I can.
And they have inns along the way, so you're safe. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, and I even get a bed every night. This sounds pretty awesome. So I went and extended my flight with the help of my mom, who graciously agreed to lie to my dad and changed my flight. So I hiked across the country of Spain for the first time, and then I was just hooked after that.
Wow.
In the through hiking and long distance community, we have a saying: you're either a one and done or you're ruined for life. And that's basically either you're gonna hike one of these trails and
Never
hate it
again. Yeah.
and never again, or you'll just continue doing it, and we're a continuous ruin for life.
Yep.
How many of the through hikers that you meet become the continual hikers like yourselves? I mean, how many of there are you out there?
There's quite a few out
More
there.
and more.
I don't know an exact number, but it's a small community where most people know each other if you've been on more than one trail or
We
5 trails.
actually just 2 days ago picked up a hitchhiker, and we probably should have met him at some point because he's done, well over 10,000 miles as well. And we were just sitting in the car naming people, and we're like, oh yeah, I know them. Oh yeah, I know them. And so you're never really more than one person away if you haven't met somebody.
She said hitchhiker, but we were on a long distance trail driving by, helping some other friends out. So we saw a person who was obviously a long distance hiker.
You're recognized by the backpack, right?
Yeah, we could tell.
You can tell.
So we picked him up, and then
In the
we were
booth.
curious why we hadn't met him in the community after all these years. But yeah,
What are the cumulative number of miles that you have each hike on trails?
You're just over 15,500, I think.
We kind of did a rough calculation before this, but I'm around 15,500 miles, and she is around 17,500.
One step at a time.
And thank heavens for the days of cell phones. Otherwise, how would you two have hooked up again? You would have I'll send you a letter to your mom. That would have been another couple years before you actually crossed paths again. So, it's interesting how digital nomads have the support of the digital world to be the nomads that they can be today. It's a bit harder.
Yeah.
Although I have a Swiss grandfather who was the second son who did not inherit the family farm. And he was backpacking, finding his way through Europe long ago and ended up in the Americas.
Across
So now my
Canada,
Swiss
yeah.
cousins are very jealous that I get to be an American and they're stuck in Switzerland.
Well,
So
not stuck, but
people were doing this, backpacking through, seeing where the winds would take them.
Yeah.
So logistically, how do you plan ahead? Do you have apps that show you your trails? You're part of these communities. You pick a trail.
satellite or just regular internet.
Yeah.
Tell us about the logistics of how you plan
all
and
of those,
deploy. Yeah.
Well, there's websites. So if you looked up National Scenic Trails, there's a whole list of all the different national scenic trails. Those would be things like the Pacific Crest Trail, the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, the Pacific Northwest Trail. There's a whole list of them, probably 20 of them. And you can go to each of their individual websites to find out more details about those trails and if they're the ones that you want to do. From there, each individual long distance trail, nowadays, most of them are on apps. So we use an app called Far Out Guides, and we can download individual trails to that app so we can navigate ourselves while we're out there on trail, at least these popular trails. This app provides us with a community of other hikers that are doing these trails, which then we can update logistics along the way, such as water reports, because the most important thing when hiking is finding water. So we can in real time go onto these apps and then update if a water source is actually current. And so it makes it really useful and a lot safer for us to be out there in the backcountry. And
there's also routes that are not on this app, and there are other ways to get that information. Usually the routes come with, you like buy a set, and then it comes with GPS tracks that you can put into a different app. It comes with printable paper maps, and it comes usually with some sort of Facebook group or an updated water report that each time you get service, you can re-download and then email it in, which is the old school way to do it. And for that, we use the apps of Gaia, Map Out, mostly Gaia.
Mostly Gaia. That's the main one. And that gives us a GPS located map on our cellular devices out in the backcountry. And so we can download then our maps
ahead of time.
And then be able to use them on our phones, which have a really nice screen and we're using out there in the backcountry.
I would still want a printed map just in case, though. Yeah.
That is also
redundancy.
a great backup to have and a super safe thing to bring with you, because a phone is technology and can fail. So because of that, batteries are a big issue. And so we have to bring battery banks, battery packs that we recharge every time we go into a town. And that's where we can have battery on our navigation.
You are carrying how much on your back to hike?
It varies depending on the trail. So ones like maybe we start early season, we'll have a few extra layers, just warm. Or maybe it's the summer trail and it's really hot outside and we don't need as many layers. So our weight varies based on that. And then our weight varies based on how much water we need to carry. Some of the routes we end up having to carry 6 liters of water, which
can get heavy. Yeah.
And then others like the Appalachian Trail, sometimes we hardly had to carry more than a liter.
So
what does that add up to?
Well, a liter is 2.2 pounds.
No, need your whole backpack. So
a whole backpack. So without water and food is probably around 15 pounds. When we add our food and water in there, it could be anywhere from 20 to 50 pounds. We normally are in the range of 35 pounds, and that's about where we like it at.
Wow, we thought we were so clever. Our last trip to Europe, we had 16 pounds on our backpack. That was mostly to get in and off those little cheap airlines. But that can be painful walking through a long airport if you're not used to it, we discovered. No problem, except those long walks through those big airports.
We're complaining about airport and they're walking.
I know. So I'm just saying, I can't even imagine that much weight and carrying it. It hurts after a while. How do you deal with that? You get used to it? Because you're walking 20 miles a day sometimes.
So normally when we start these trails, we don't start at 20 miles a day because
you're working up to it.
So we work up to that. And the first 2 weeks of any of these long distance hikes is always the worst because our bodies have to get into shape and adjust. So yes, we definitely feel it on our shoulders and collarbones and our hips where we cinch down our hip belts for the first couple weeks. But then your body just gets used to it. It's used to a backpack being on its shoulders. You build up the strength that you need and your legs get stronger. And after multiple weeks of slowly building up our miles, we work into those 20 mile a day averages of just either doing 20 and some days doing 25, 30, and just and being able to do it. But we never typically just start that big.
Gotcha. Yeah,
You
that
must
makes
have
sense.
do you do some stretching or whatever some type of yoga, some kind of a process of, no, you just put on your backpack and you're
Slow
gone.
walking is really
I know it's a
working
workout,
all
but also
those-
you got to keep the muscles stretched too, both.
Yeah, no, a lot of people do try to do stretching and such out there, and they tend to hurt themselves because it's such a
Interesting.
different movement. When you're walking day after day, your muscles get very used to doing the exact same movement. So the best warm up is to slowly walk. And so it's starting
That makes
and you're a
sense.
little sore, you're creaky in the morning, but
Yeah.
after about 15 to 30 minutes of just slower walking, you don't feel anymore, and you just go and you feel really good, and all the correct muscles get warmed up. A lot of people try to do that stretching and then they overstretch and hurt muscles, especially.
Interesting.
And then you're dealing with that pain. So, exercise is its own trance inducer,
Right.
right? And people think it's more like running as opposed to walking, but I think walking can be a walking meditation, especially you're wondering where to put your foot, how to do this, looking around nature. You've got this long distance view around you. It is a beautiful meditative process. And so there you are in this process for all day. What kind of a mental zone are you in during and then after? Because that would be interesting.
I would say it varies based on the day and the stresses of that day. Some days it's easier to slip into that walking meditation or state of flow. And some days it's a little harder. If all the conditions are right, it's perfect hiking temperature, the trail's not too steep, not too flat. It's really quite easy to slip into that.
You don't have to worry about water or weather coming in on you. You can definitely slip into that flow state of just walking meditation. When you have to navigate and do a lot more logistics planning, it's harder to slip into it. But
that's a state in and of itself when you're in, when we have to navigate a cross-country section that doesn't have trail, and we navigate together, and that's its own state of flow that's different, and it's a lot more mentally exhausting. Whereas a state of flow on a trail that's really clearly marked that you don't have to navigate
like the
very
Pacific
much,
Crest Trail or the
you can just
Appalachian Trail.
go.
Yeah.
You just slip into that state of flow and zone out for hours on end, and you've walked 6 miles and you've been in your mind the entire time. It's wonderful.
So you're not chit-chatting. I mean, at this point, there's not you conversation-wise between the two of you.
Save it for the campsite.
Yeah, you save it for later or whatever. You just kind of.
We have our own kind of rhythm that we slip into, and a lot of it is we like to spend our mornings chit-chatting or without any kind of music or audiobooks, and we usually try and keep that until after lunch. And then after lunch in the afternoon, we tend to struggle a little, and we'll usually turn on music and audiobook, podcasts in our headphones, and we like to listen to different things. So that is what we enjoy also, because then we get to talk about them afterwards. Well, I listened to this podcast. Well, I listened to this book. And that kind of mentally stimulates you when you're getting so much physical stimulation.
Yes.
You start at a certain point need a mental stimulation. I want to learn something. Let me go get this podcast about whatever you want to learn.
It's too difficult to sit down and read books and make miles, and so a lot of times audiobooks or podcasts, especially educational things, because when you're out there walking and you're going by all these trees and animals, you're just like, what is this? How does this? A funny story actually with one of our mothers, with Sharon, her mother. We were hiking the Hayduke Trail in Utah, and we were in a canyon, and we had a DeLorme InReach satellite phone.
Texter.
It was basically so we can send emergency texts out. And we were walking through this canyon for a couple of days, and we were just listening to these frogs croak night after night. Sorry, right by your head. And they were so noisy, and we were curious, and we didn't have any internet or anything to be able to just go, what is this frog? And really more curious, how long do frogs live that they can just be in here croaking like this? So we used our satellite phone to text Sharon, and she
What
responded.
is the lifespan of a frog? Please Google.
When she got back to us in the middle of the canyon in Utah with
4 to 7 years, depending on the frog.
so they can live a long
Wow.
time.
Wow.
Interesting.
Well, it makes sense that your mind would say, I need you to navigate here, right? So that wouldn't be a trancy state. But I like the sense of the flow. I mean, being out in nature can be its own medicine. And I think that I find I slip into a different state just being in nature. And
Right.
you're there for months on end. How often do you go into the towns? Like when you need supplies? And how do you mail your stuff ahead? How do you resupply? How
And,
do you know in what town? You're mapping not only your maps, you're pre-mapping your entertainment when you want to know about it, you're downloading all this, but also you must know where are the stops along the way,
Right.
and what's going to be there.
And of
right?
course, it's a fundamental question we haven't addressed yet, and that was asked in the chat room in the very beginning. Is
yeah.
how do you finance yourself? Do you have wealthy parents? I mean, how do you do all of this? How do you able to afford to live on the road and budget everything?
What does it
And,
cost? And,
yeah, the cost
yeah.
associated with all of this as well. So Laura's question and mine both.
Well, if we want to get into the cost, heavy saving, heavy budgeting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of it is living with less and understanding that we don't need as many things unless they break, So we have our certain number of gear. And this last year, I was an ambassador for 6 Moon Designs. So we got most of our hiking gear for free.
Or discounted. Yeah.
Free for me and discounted for you. And so that saved us probably $1,000 right there, just getting new gear in exchange for photographs and 3 blog posts. And then we also practice, last month, I calculated it. I think we spent $187 on gas, and that was it. So we practice what we call slow travel. And so we'll go to a place that's free BLM or, Arizona State Trust land, which costs $20 for a permit for a year. And we'll hang out there and experience nature outside in free public lands.
Beautiful.
Our only cost is food, which, if you're careful and you cook everything, which we do, that also saves a lot of money.
But slow travel.
travel.
And we work seasonal jobs. So when we're not hiking, we find seasonal work that we can do that expects us to leave. So one of those jobs that they expect you to come at a certain time and then leave is ski resorts. And so we worked years and still do at times up in Colorado Rocky Mountains at different ski resorts. And in that way we can make as much money as we can working, and our activity is then skiing. So we're not spending money.
It's a good life. It's a good life.
In that situation, we work usually 2 jobs, one that gives us discounted housing and one that gives us a free ski pass. And so then we work from 1 p.m. to usually midnight, and then we ski all morning. So with the ski pass being paid for by one job, then in all the time we could be spending money on entertainment or things we're working. And so that helped us save up a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
With all that physical expenditure, you're burning a lot of calories. And so your body is adapting to that high altitude, being up in the mountains. Your body's adapting. What is that experience like? How do you feel it or note it or monitor it, from being on the trail to being off the trail, low to high?
Yeah.
Altitudes.
Well, altitude affects
me a little bit more.
Yeah. But
and
you
I get less hungry at altitude.
Yeah. And normally when it gets cold, that's when I find I get the hungriest, because you're burning so many calories. Altitude, I definitely feel it, like when you're trying to breathe and you get that heavy breath. But a lot of the trails we're on, we're at sustained altitude, so your body just adjusts and you get used to it. But you find that pace that works for you, where you're not hyperventilating and you try to stay in that zone. And it's the same with hiking uphill in general, and walking on the trail. You try to find that perfect rhythm where you are pushing the boundary of going a little too far, but not quite there, so you can maintain that kind of pace for a long period of time.
Find the pain point and pull back.
Exactly. And pull back just a little bit.
And then based on calories, it changes throughout the trail. So for example, we just hiked the Continental Divide Trail for the second time.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, it's pretty chill. We don't need a ton of calories. We aim for like 3,000 to 5,000 calories a day. And in town, we obviously try and eat a lot more. So we go into a more of a binge cycle when we get into towns, and we have to eat as much as possible to make up for calories that we've lost. And you get into kind of a machine state, we call it, where, you know, maybe mile 800 to 1800, you're like, you just go, your body will eat and devour anything. It runs on anything. And then after a certain point, your body actually starts to break down, because despite our trying to get as many calories as possible, and despite eating as much as we can, we literally sometimes set a timer when we get into town to make sure we're eating every hour. To make sure we get calories in, because you sometimes get busy and forget to eat. And around that mile 2000, your body starts to eat itself no matter what you do. And you have to recover afterwards, for sure.
So after 2,000 miles, are you saying after, when you've been walking and expending that much energy, your body shifts mode to what, eat, like dissolve its own muscles, basically?
Yeah.
It needs protein, it needs, so.
Yeah.
Well, and like earlier you were mentioning the
Major keto,
and
Sorry?
so part of earlier you were mentioning physiological changes, and part of that is like all of our upper body muscles aren't really needed. And so that muscle and that fat either gets eaten by our body, or it shifts to our legs and our calves, because that's the muscles we use the most.
That makes sense.
So literally you can see this physical change of mass moving down.
Like shoulders start to get smaller, your back muscles start to shrink, chest starts to shrink in, and then your legs though become solid tree trunks. And then eventually though, you start noticing like your glutes start to go away, and then your legs start to get skinnier. And at that point, there's not much you can do while you're out there on trail. You just need to finish your trail and rest and eat a lot of calories afterwards.
And then go to a parent's house where they feed you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's always a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know you have some beautiful slides and pictures to share of some of your journeys. I'd love to see some of that. I think everybody would enjoy seeing that. We'll continue with the conversation, because I know Laura and I could ask you questions for another hour before we get to the slides. But let's do the slides
let's
and then
see
do
some
more
visuals.
questions afterwards, and we're going to open it up to questions as well.
And
we
meet the
want
moms.
And we want to meet the moms. Yeah.
Definitely.
Sure.
Okay, let's do this.
So this is us on the Continental Divide Trail in Colorado. We were really excited to get into the higher mountains. So we decided to sit down and take a picture. And so we started with, Laura asked for a map, and are the national scenic trails, the ones that are designated by Congress. And if we use the mouse here, this is the Pacific Crest Trail. A lot of people talk about this one. This is the Continental Divide Trail that we just finished for the second time. And this green line over here is the Appalachian Trail that most people know. And so we've done, of this list, the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Divide, the Arizona Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Pacific Northwest Trail. But that's just the ones that are designated. So I have, here we go, next slide. I have some routes on here. So we mentioned a canyon in Utah, and that was on the Hayduke Trail. Trail being it was mostly cross country.
So this is Utah up here, and it starts in Arches National Park, and then it works its way into Moab through Canyonlands National Park over to Capitol Reef, down to Glen, or basically down to the Grand Canyon and Bryce Canyon, and then you walk in the Grand Canyon for a while out to Zion. So that one's a really interesting one.
We've been to most of those parks. I didn't know that they were all connected. That's interesting.
Yeah,
they're not meant to be. It's, you sneak in the back way and sneak out different ways of all of them.
so most people go on a road trip to all of these national parks, and we decided to go on a hiking trip to all of them.
That
Wow, fabulous.
actually based off of a book by Edward Abbey. It's based off of the Monkey Wrench Gang.
So,
which is an interesting one. And then this is the lowest to highest route. So you start in Badwater Basin and go all the way up to Mount Whitney.
wow.
That was a really fascinating one to do in the span of a week.
basically in the US, we have so many awesome and diverse landscapes. And so this one, for instance, it is called the lowest to highest because Badwater Basin is the lowest point in the US, negative 200 feet below sea level. And then it goes to the highest point in the US besides Alaska, being Mount Whitney. And that's within 130 miles. And inside the and right out of Badwater Basin, you do the highest climb of any elevation ascent in the US, which is 11,000 feet, climbing out of Badwater Basin up to the top of Telescope Peak. And was it 10 miles, 20 miles? So
yeah,
in a very short amount of time. So it's a really cool, different route that's not one of the main trails.
And then this is the Grand Enchantment Trail. This is the one that we are starting this year. And we just did the first 50 miles over Christmas with two of our buddies, Maverick and Shadow.
So it starts in the Phoenix area
Superstitions.
in the Superstition Mountains and then walks through a lot of the Sky Islands and over to Albuquerque in New Mexico. So that's what we're looking to do in the spring.
Is that continuous trail, or are you kind of walking across roads or through towns or whatever?
Yeah, that one is actually a lot of cross-country dirt roads and some trail. So a lot of it is not continuous trail.
And you run into farms and pueblos and things, or is it all kind
Backyards.
of still people's backyards? or no?
There's actually not that many people living out there, so it's all in open land for the most part that you're camping, and you do go into towns to be able to resupply, but then once you leave a town, you're basically in the middle of the desert and not many people are around you.
Beautiful.
We have a friend or two who bikes long distance and follows roads, back roads, but also they have like the local fire stations will welcome them and house them and feed them. So there's these stations along the way, and that I guess makes it a lot more fun. But you know, that's walking.
That's pedestrian compared to this. Yeah.
Pedaling versus walking.
Pedaling.
Yeah.
We have some good friends that do a lot of bike trips and bike touring. It's not, I just don't like being on roads where vehicles are driving next to me. It's a bit like the flow state and the Zen state. I don't feel
destroyed by vehicles whizzing by.
I can't slip into a meditative state when I have vehicles and semi-trucks zipping by me.
Well, speaking of Albuquerque, you've already gotten an invitation from Tony Hall, our good friend. He says, come visit. He's in the northern foothills of some of the Sandias. So,
wonderful.
Well, we'll be finishing up in that
he's a very
area.
good host. Yeah. So.
Wonderful. We'll have to say hi.
Yeah.
So international. Sorry, we can.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Veg.
Well, these are some of the international ones we worked on. Kevin and I together did this Scottish National Trail, which is new as of 2012. And we had a blast over there. And then these are some of the maps of the Caminos in Spain. And so the French way here is the one I started on. And the next year I did the Northern way. And then in 2017, I did the Primitive way with my mom, who's on this call right now. So these are just some of the maps of trails.
Yes, see that.
Yeah.
And then I have a few pictures of just us on trail to give some perspective of areas we go through. The top picture here is towards the start of the Oregon Coast Trail. There's a shipwreck up there.
Yeah.
The bottom one is in Montana.
San Juan.
Oh, is this the San Juans?
San Juans.
This is the San Juans in southern Colorado. And so another really remote US that most people don't know about, the southern San Juans. This is just us when we're out there hiking, and basically these are the backpacks, the typical size that we have on while we're hiking. So they're a bit smaller than the old school backpack where you see all that stuff strapped onto the outside of it, hanging underneath your pack and whatnot. See, so
we have, this is a view from the Hayduke Trail on the left, I believe. And then on the right is one of our favorite sunsets in Arizona off the Arizona Trail.
and
This
then
one was from the top of Mount Whitney when we did the lowest to highest route that we were talking about earlier.
That's highest, yeah.
Yeah.
So 14,500 feet. And
Wow.
this is also on the Hayduke Trail on the left here. If you look where the mouse is, that's actually Mandy scrambling down the rocks so we can go out this chute there. And on the right, this is me in the Appalachian Mountains.
Wow.
So
speaking of the
Appalachian Mountains, this is the knife edge heading up over Katahdin, which is the most of the time finish for Appalachian Trail hikers, but we decided to start here and go south
in 2018.
in 2018. Once again, this is Mandy scrambling down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. So this is the Colorado River flowing down below. And we were scrambling down so we could get water because there's no water up on the Tonto Plateau. How do we get into towns when we're hiking? We typically hitchhike. So if you see some people on the side of the road near a long distance trail with a thumb out, they're gonna smell really bad, but they just need to get into town. And so on the right, that's our typical mode of hitchhiking on the side of a highway. We needed to get to Astoria, Oregon to actually start our trail. And on the left, this is us at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and we were hiking on the northern side. And then all of a sudden our trail ran out and there was
quote unquote trail. We bushwhacked 10 miles to get to this point to then get across and then bushwhack another 10 miles to another trail.
Yeah, so we had to stand on the bottom of the Colorado River with our thumbs out, waiting for a rafting crew to go by.
And did you get a ride finally? Yeah.
We did. A pontoon raft with a crew came floating by, and we were both silently looking at each other like, what are these guys with their thumbs doing on the side of the river? And finally, we were like, hey, can we just get a ride across to the other side? We thought it would be dangerous to swim. And with that, they gave us a ride to the other side and dropped us off, and we never saw them again.
So you do bring pen and paper, old-fashioned pen and paper with you.
Typically have a Sharpie with us just in case.
Yeah.
Cooking on trail, we do a couple different methods. We'll sometimes bring a skillet out and fry up some quesadillas with fake cheese and beans and whatnot. And but normally what we do is we dehydrate our food and rehydrate it out there on trail in a pot. And
by we dehydrate, I mean we tell my mom 3 months in advance and she dehydrates.
Yep. And
another question for mom. Okay.
Yeah.
And we show up at her house and package it into meals.
Yeah.
I have a friend who every ounce counts when she's traveling, so she'll even dehydrate her shampoo. Let's just leave it out in the air in little containers. So it like she's fierce.
Gels.
Yeah.
Every ounce definitely counts, and I do not blame her for doing that. Besides cooking,
we get a lot of questions on if we forage when we're out there, and we don't ever count on foraging for calories. This is all bonus calories. We're very proficient in berries, not really any other ones. So on the left, you have some huckleberries from Glacier. On the right, there's some raspberries from Southern Idaho. In the middle, that's Kevin and our friend Coyote foraging for strawberries. And a funny thing about that story is we were foraging for berries and all of a sudden we heard some noises, and then we like slowly looked up, and across the way, maybe 100 yards down, was a grizzly bear that also slowly looked up from a berry patch. And then oh, what should we do? And then the grizzly bear just sunk back down and kept eating. So back down and kept eating.
And then kind of slowly.
I'm glad the bears were more interesting than you folks. So
yeah. But
yeah,
the bear understood that we were just doing the same thing as
plenty of berries to go around.
Yeah, exactly. For water is the other thing that's super important out there. And how do we get it? in the Southwest down here, it's a lot of ranchers and cattle troughs. That's the main water sources, as well as right now, since it's raining, the rivers and creeks are flowing great.
So we use a system called a Sawyer squeeze. And so you'll see these kind of beat up bottles that we're taking water straight out. That's what we call a dirty bottle. And so we put water from a stream. This on the top left is a piped spring or one of these cattle troughs. And then we screw the thing on the top right onto it, and then we squeeze it through, and that filters it.
Wow. Wow.
And this one's the larger one. It weighs about 4 ounces, and they make other ones, but the Sawyer squeeze is what we use. And it's been a staple of our year. Yeah. Oh, it
makes your water taste better. We don't like using chemicals in our water.
For
the long term, we prefer a filter, and this is just one of the lighter ones out there.
Yeah.
What kind of filter is in there that I can take microbes, germs, dirt, whatever, chemicals?
Yeah, it takes pretty much everything, at least anything that's gonna make you sick. The worst thing about this filter is you have to keep it from freezing, because the filter, and I wish I could tell you what it is inside. I don't know exactly off the top of my head. But if it gets frozen, it cracks the filter, and then the bad stuff can get through. So we sleep with our filters at night, so they never freeze on us.
Inside our sleeping bags.
Somebody is asking about your ultimate backpack and how to select what you carry. So we'll talk more about that. I just want to say I had that same question, and it's fascinating because you have so much weight, so much room. Water's going to be, I mean, you've gotten the necessities, and then, we'll cover that in a bit.
We'll address that at the end. Okay.
Definitely. It's
very individual.
Yep. Everybody has their own perfect backpack, and there's no correct one way to do it.
But I recall, Mandy, you said you carry your fears. And so we'll talk about that. That's an interesting statement. But
so this, speaking of our backpack, most of it is laid out on the ground here. So you can see most of our internal backpack here, which is our sleeping bag liner, which is basically a sheet to keep our sleeping bags cleaner for longer. We have air mattresses, where that is for comfort for sleeping, because sleep is incredibly important when you're out there hiking day after day. You need to be able to recover, so we bring air mattresses for that.
Those are ultralight air mattresses. I think they weigh about 12 ounces each. And can save weight there. It's just, for us, it wasn't worth the bad sleep. So a few extra ounces for better sleep was worth it to us.
And so this type of camping we call cowboy camping, when you don't set up a tent. And then when we do set up a tent, we use a tarp, and it's typically a 2-part system of a top waterproof tarp section, and then inside we can set up a bug net as well, or we can do it by itself with just the bug net or just the tarp.
And so these are 2 different systems. We had an older system on the left and the bottom right that was a bit lighter, but also, if we got stuck in bad weather, started to get really uncomfortable because we could only have one of us sit up at a time. And then on the top right, that's the bug net and tarp we use now, which looks a little bit more like your classic tent, but it is separate, so we can set them up individually or together.
And our tents or tarps are set up using our hiking poles to make them stand up. There's no other poles included besides what we use to hike with,
which is a way we save weight.
I'm a big fan of the walking pole, just when you're walking, because it really gets your arms going, like, the squeeze. It helps in that rhythm. If you're going in a straight flat, I don't like it so much going up and down.
Trekking poles.
Yeah.
So this is some of the more classic wildlife that we see on trail. The big cow is a Highland coo from Scotland. We saw a lot of those out there with their funky looking hair. The other 2 are from the Appalachian Trail, and this is, at the beginning you mentioned, how do you deal with boredom, especially, the Appalachian Trail gets a lot of flack for being quote unquote the green tunnel, where you don't get the views that the West offers. And so we shrink our senses a little and start to look for the smaller things. And so we found this turtle camouflaged and we thought he was fascinating. And then in New England, we saw all these newts, these little orange critters down here. And so we started counting them. And that was our game for the day. And we'd individually count and see if we came up with the same number or somewhere similar. One day we managed to see 87 of them.
Instead of counting cars, red cars on the road, you're counting newts on the trail.
Yeah. And a couple other animals from our most recent trip
Oh
on the
my.
Continental Divide Trail.
So we have this.
Oh, sorry, I
yeah,
can
you're
go
good.
back.
There's a black bear that we saw up in the Bob Marshall Wilderness that had this really distinctive marking on it that we found really
Yeah.
fast.
Mm.
And then we have a bighorn ram and a bull moose that we saw in Glacier National Park.
When we're hiking, one of our favorite things is to try to see the wildlife, and so we're constantly on
The
lookout for different animals and bugs and birds, and so we were really excited to see these.
Oh,
while
I
we were
bet
on
you could get your Audubon list going in ways that most people can't out there. Bird watching. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also have had 2 different vans in the last little bit. And so this is our first van that we got off of Craigslist and built out in 12 days?
12 days for like $300.
Yeah.
And
You
it
guys
was,
built it out yourselves? Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
And so
And
this is our old van, and then we upgraded to our new van, and we also built this one out ourselves. And so this is what we're in right now. And
yeah,
that's how we travel around.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Fantastic.
From dark to white. Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
And that's
And
a
that's where
packing.
you are now. That's where you're sitting now.
Yeah, and that's a packing complication unto itself. Having the van have everything proper that needs to be in the van for your travel, so you can maintain your life without having clutter. Everything, I'm sure, everything has to have a place. You can't have extras. You have to have
Well,
just
okay.
those things that support your lifestyle.
And how do you plan ahead? So, for example, it's pretty easy to run through one's hiking shoes, right? You use them a lot, they wear out. And what if you sprain an ankle? How do you deal with these kinds of contingencies? You might go to a town, but they don't necessarily have a store that's going to have the right hiking boot, and it's hard to break in those hiking boots,
Shoes,
right?
or
Or
sandals. Yeah.
you know, you put your shoes out for a day, a coyote steals it or something. I mean, that can happen, right? So how do you deal with the emergencies, the contingencies, the unforeseens, the sprain?
So
Yeah.
some things we plan ahead and some things we do on the fly. We are actually sandal hikers, and it's convenient that in the winter the sandals go on sale. And so we usually buy 4 to 8 pairs each winter when the prices drop, and then we store them at my mom's shed.
She can mail them to you on the road. Yeah.
That's on the road.
mhm.
Yeah.
And so some of those things we plan ahead. We have extra gear usually at her house because she has all of our meals, our dehydrated meals, and she will send us care packages.
Ah, wow.
If we're in town A, I'm planning ahead to town B and C. So from town, like pre-town, I've already mailed the first towns.
Mhm.
And then from town A, I'm mailing having her mail plan C. And then from wow, I'm tongue tied here. From B, we're having her mail D and so forth. So we're always working 2 towns ahead.
Yeah.
So postage is one of your big expenses
Yeah.
because there's always a USPS in every small town, right? Office. So it's time to introduce the moms now that you're telling them
Well-
how they support you.
Okay.
Yeah. What were you going to
Yeah.
say, Kevin? Did you have something to say first?
Oh, I can start with my mom. I don't see her on there, but I think she is still
Cindy?
there. And she is Cindy Savage, and she lives down in Southern California.
Hi,
Oh,
Cindy.
Nice, Cindy, and welcome. Yeah.
And
She who helps make this lifestyle possible. Yeah. Kudos to the moms. Yeah.
And yeah, and we can bring up
And then my mom is Sharon Redpath, and she helps us with our resupply. She was conveniently in logistics for this. And so whenever I'm stumped on logistics, it's a, hey, mom.
okay, moms,
How long do frogs live? And other questions. So welcome, Sharon.
Having adventurous children. What an
Yeah.
amazing journey. Because I don't know what your dreams were when you had your child and they grew up and going to go to college and then they're going to get a good job as a
Then they're
doctor
going to have
or
kids,
whatever.
and then
They're
you're
going
going
to
to
have kids.
visit the grandkids.
They're going to have a 2-bedrooms, 2-bath house down the street
picket
from you.
fence.
With the
Yeah.
picket fence, yeah. None of that happened. So, how did this all fit
Yet.
your life?
They're young. Yeah.
Cindy, you want to talk first?
Thank goodness that didn't happen. Picket fences, boy, that would just drive people crazy. Yeah. Well, I think, Kevin has a little bit of an adventurous background because, my parents used to be snowbirds going across the country every couple of years to Florida Keys. And then he grew up being homeschooled. So everything was kind of his own, trying to figure out what he wanted to learn and, feeding the chickens and, that kind of thing. And
You
then,
prepped him from a young age. Yeah.
we hope so. And then Trip, who's sitting here next to me right there. We've just spent the last, our anniversary is tomorrow. So we just spent the last 14 years living in China and India and overseas, and then coming back and have a motorhome. And that's what we do. We meet Kevin and Mandy, different places along their trek, and we bring in our motorhome, and either we do a couple of vehicle hiking adventures, or they're hiking across Arizona and we find a campground and park there and start putting messages on the trail that all of their friends, and we say, have Karma and Veggie come by yet? Tell them where we are, and then they find us and we feed.
Well, you're
And
on your own
we got
adventure.
to meet them at Bevan Dogs. You were at the Thanksgiving, so that was fun. Yeah.
Now, are you full-time RVing? Or are you RVing part-time?
We were full-time RVing for about 4 years, and and now it's just part-time RVing, and a lot of it is hanging out with them. Go.
How wonderful that is! Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That goes beyond parental support.
And Sharon, hi Sharon.
I know.
Yeah. So what's your story?
Well, Mandy's dad and I were career Navy, and in the Navy I did logistics, as Mandy mentioned. So that tends to be what I do to support them. I will say that her lifestyle wasn't her dad's and mine, but we're really happy that she got the travel bug and the nature bug and wants to be out there, but also that she found such a wonderful life partner who wants to share everything that she loves. And it just makes me so happy, particularly because now I know she's not out hiking by herself all the time.
Right.
The safety factor, having Karma with her, makes me happy. But the other thing I love to do is I love to cook. And so that's one of the ways that I can help them on their trail to stay healthy and happy and safe is I cook for months, and then I dehydrate. I have a dehydrator going 24/7 in my house, usually for 2 or 3 months before their hike.
Wow.
And I've gotten really good at making food that they can then rehydrate and eat on a trail. And then I do send all their food and the boxes, the extra supplies and stuff, like she said, their sandals and anything else that they need, bug nets and, batteries and whatever kind of crazy stuff that she comes up with that they need. But she is really good about doing spreadsheets ahead of time for me. So I usually have an entire spreadsheet, and this time Karma even did up all the mailing labels for all the places where I had to send things. So I could package it all up and slap a label on it and take it up to the post office. And, I live in a really tiny town of only 2,000 people, and the postal clerks all know me and all want to know where the kids are, because here's the package yet again, every week a package is going out. So
Karma is Kevin's nickname, by the way.
Oh yeah.
And Mandy,
yeah,
what's
the
your
trail
nickname?
names. Yeah, sorry.
Trail name. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just really happy to be able to help them. It's a way that I can participate in a way with their hiking. I'm just happy that they have found a lifestyle that works for them at this point in their life, and not waiting, till like me, where I did over 30 years in the Navy. and then finally got to retire and do kind of some of the things that I love. And they're doing that now, because they choose to do a much more minimalistic lifestyle and have learned to not need things around them all the time. Although I will say they're not unhappy when they come to my house and have all those things that make life comfy.
Shower.
Yeah. And they usually come to my house after they've done those 2,000-mile trails, like they did this last fall, and they were scrawny as all get out. And so I just cook and bake and bake and bake and feed them till they get some weight back on them. And that
I want to come to your house for sure.
And that makes me happy. Yeah.
Wow. And so that you two moms are friends because you have something in common here, right?
kids.
These kids and your philosophy also, to support them and celebrate this. And you're off on your own adventures as well. Oh my gosh.
How fabulous.
Wow.
How fabulous.
Yeah. We're
I'm sorry?
found each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah, how
about
sweet.
20, I'd say about 20 years ago, Laura and I had just finished a big aspect of our career, and we decided we wanted to do on the road full time as an experience. And we said we're not going to wait till
Well, we were going to
retirement
go out and
age.
teach this all over the place,
So we
wherever
took
we
out, we
have
were
it.
doing,
Yeah.
and we were doing interviews on the road, and we were traveling. But
And
we
teaching.
sold our house. We got the big Class A mobile home, and we traveled all across the Southwest.
great fun.
Spent time with Dr. Goodman. We traveled around,
Yeah.
and it was that experience that really kind of opens. It's a comfortable, easy lifestyle to be more free. You would drive into a place like a Costco to get gasoline, and you see all these people with shopping carts and lawn furniture and everything. You say, what a bunch of fools. What are they doing? They're missing out on life. And then we had these two youngsters that are laughing at us thinking we need to have an RV to enjoy the world of travel. So yeah, it's a full circle experience.
There's this interesting push-pull between minimalism and nesting. And I remember hiking through the Negev desert early on, and there was a tree, a big, beautiful, well-branched, sturdy tree that was hung with a cooking pot and a teapot and all this stuff. And the story was, that's a nomadic tribe's stash, right? You do not touch that. That's their stash. They'll come around in their migration route and pick it up again for this leg. They've got, this is as old as humankind,
Well,
right?
the Aboriginal
to
walkabout,
migrate, to have one store of supplies and then pick them up as needed,
How about Utsi,
to travel these long distances, to be on the go, but also to nest. So we have these two instincts, to nest and also to explore.
Let's see the ice cave.
Utsi, the Iceman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's another example. How old is that?
5,000 years.
Yeah.
Where everything he had on him was so well chosen with natural materials that were 17 different kinds of woods to make up his spear, and his clothing shedding water from reeds, and his dried mushrooms hanging from,
And the best contiguous story is the Aboriginals of Australia going back, whatever. The whole idea of
Well,
walkabout.
and also boats have been employed in long migration routes that haven't been celebrated well enough or documented well enough for humankind to get around. Yeah.
Well, Cindy and Sharon, wonderful to see you both. Yeah. Oh man, go ahead.
Yeah.
Exploration just used to always be part of the human consciousness, I guess, and it just isn't so much a thing now. We're talking about going to space, I guess, because we don't have many things to discover anymore. They think map
We say
out.
the inner space is the ultimate frontier, but there you go.
But
I will mention that we have two astrophysicists in the chat room today. Tony Hall, who worked on the recent mirrors for the James Webb Telescope, and Woody Woodward, who was the
design the optics
for the
and James
Hubble,
Webb and others.
Yeah, both. Yeah. So anyway, we got a foot
Talk
in
about
both
space
worlds.
exploration.
Yeah, we got a foot in both worlds today.
Yeah, the new lands that need to be mapped and seen. But there are still so many that were mapped here that haven't been walked on by people in such a long time. And I don't know, maybe we still have some of that need to go and explore in our DNA. It's a job that's not around anymore, but we're sure as heck trying to bring it back.
Good philosophy. What do you have to say about that, Mandy? What is it about the joy of setting off on some new trail and you don't know what's around the corner and just appreciating the beauty? Nature is beautiful in its pristine state. It's just glorious to behold. A wild animal looking you in the eyes is just a magical moment. I mean, there are so many joys, so it must be worth the trials and tribulations and efforts. So
It is.
how do you?
I would say it's just the simplicity, you know, like where's my next water is one of our biggest concerns, especially in the desert.
Mhm.
And, you know, do I have enough food to make the miles that I want to make? And even just like you said, there's so many areas here that haven't been explored or haven't been explored in a long time. The first 50 miles of the Grand Enchantment Trail that we just did over Christmas, the first about 10 miles were good trail. And then you could tell it was trail at some point for the next 25 miles, maybe 50, 30 years ago. But it was so overgrown, we'd have like 10 feet of trail, and then a whole different plant would grow up and you'd get 2 feet off and you'd have no idea where the trail was.
And you don't see footsteps
And you
from
don't see
anybody
footsteps.
else, and you know you're the only people who have been out here at least in the last year, and it's just like,
Mhm.
wow.
And then it's
Yeah.
so overgrown with cat claw, this like really spiky plant.
Oh, I
thing.
hate that plant.
We've
Yeah.
got well acquainted with over the last few days. But
Yeah.
it was so overgrown with that. We were joking that you have to be a special kind of human to find it fun to get just your legs shredded by cat claws. You're trying to find this
Yeah.
old trail that's really
Yeah.
not a trail anymore.
And especially because you're wearing the sandals too, so you're more exposed
Mm-hmm.
than a hiking boot or something. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, or Carhartts or something like that.
Tweezers are de rigueur around here.
Tweezers,
had those.
they're definitely
Cactus.
our kit.
Yeah.
We-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I've seen people try to bite the spikes off. No, get it in your tongue. You need tweezers or 2 rocks pinched. That works too. But yeah, tweezers.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Let's open it up to some more questions. I want to thank both Cindy and Sharon for joining in, the mothers joining in on the conversation. And let's go ahead and open it up and have some more questions as well from others who'd like to participate, because I know that
Tony's saying in the year 2000, our maps of Mars were more complete than those on Earth. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Wow.
yeah.
Thank
Where did the moms go?
Oh, I thought we
No,
were
let's hear from the moms.
okay.
Leave the moms on. They've got stories to add.
Okay, sorry, I thought
Yeah,
you
if
were
you
saying
want to. And
Yeah.
then we can also, we got a lot of squares here. We can fit lots of
Okay,
people.
questions, raise your hand. You know how to use
Yeah.
the Zoom question, raise your hand bar. And also, of course, there's going to be the question of diet, because we have a lot of people that study nutrition in this conversation. But that the type of output that the body puts for this type of energy, what is the diet that's best recommended?
Put Sharon back on. She's the cook.
Oh yeah, I'm finding it right here.
Yeah.
It's going to take me a moment.
I think while we're
And also the home remedies. You know, if you get an itch, a bug bite, a scratch, what are your remedies that you're carrying as well? A
Yeah, yeah.
sprain, what do you do for that?
Well, to start with diet, our diet is very different in the van when we have a 3-burner stove and on trail because of the calories that we're needing on trail.
Yeah.
And so basically any and all calories, we call ourselves mostly vegan because we do eat honey and we do eat what we call happy chicken eggs. So for example, my mom's neighbor has chickens and half the time my mom tends said chickens. So these chickens get to run around and have a lot of fun. And so we like to eat those eggs. And so she'll actually dehydrate those
Sure.
for us.
You dehydrate an egg. I've never heard of that. Interesting.
Oh.
And Mandy, you earlier mentioned powdered peanut butter, and I just mail ordered some. Put
Nice.
in
Nice.
oatmeal. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's, oh wow.
doesn't have as many oils in it. It's nice.
That's one we like in the van. On trail, we want the full calories of the peanut butter oils.
Yeah. So on trail we'll do actual peanut butter.
Then you've got a
because-
heavy jar, right? So how do you?
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
use plastic jars. We'll try not to use the glass ones, but if we do have to get a glass jar, because that's what they have in the store, we'll transfer it into some sort of lighter container.
Sure.
Or the butter jar that we haven't thrown away yet.
The one from the
last
section before.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Well, Tony has his hand up. So Tony, would you like to join the conversation?
Yeah, thank you. A fascinating discussion. Let's see, I hope I'm unmuted. Yes,
Yes, you are.
of this, and you know, I was looking carefully at your backpack, and you were much more efficient than I was when I hitchhiked the Sahara. I think I had a 55-pound pack,
Yeah.
Oh,
which was, of course, I was hitchhiking, so I was getting rides
Yeah.
sometimes, but not always. uh, but I'm really interested in so many logistic things, like how do you wash? You must take minimal clothes, so you must have to wash occasionally. Uh, what do you do so that, I mean, you have to use, you have bodily functions and things like that. How do you manage that so that you're not having to carry lots of toilet paper and other things? If I
Hmm.
may ask, it's not too personal.
No, this is a great question, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. Actually, toiletries is a great question. We typically are only out in the woods for a week at a time. That's normally what we plan for before we go into a town and resupply ourselves with more food and such. So we only have the amount of toilet paper that is for whatever given section we're in, whether it be 3 days, 5 days, or 7 days, with maybe a little extra in case an accident happens. Um,
peanut butter.
Peanut butter, don't
Mm.
eat for dinner. Um, But yeah, so for toiletries, normally what we do is we will dig a hole and we'll bury our feces, but we do not bury our toilet paper on these long trails and such. We'll put it in a separate plastic bag and carry that out with us.
It's double plastic bagged. So we use 2 sandwich bags, one inside the other.
Mhm.
And it's really important to us not to leave the toilet paper, especially in desert environments where it doesn't decompose very fast. And we've all
No.
been on trails where it's just toilet paper flowers everywhere. And for us, we were like, well, this is a problem. What can we do about it? And so we pack it out and then we throw it out in town.
Yeah,
Well, great that you do that, but that you hike these wonderful, well-known trails, so you must see the flowers quite a bit.
yes, absolutely. The wildflowers are just unbelievable, especially.
Well, I didn't mean the
Oh,
wildflower.
the toilet paper flowers, yeah. Especially on the really popular long distance trails, there's so many people on it that the toilet paper cannot decompose fast enough, and so there's just more volume than it can.
Nature can.
Nature
then-
can.
How we clean ourselves, this also goes into our budgeting as well. So when we go into town, we have budgeted a hotel or a motel or a trail angel's house, which is a whole other story, or a friend's house. But we usually try to budget one night at like a cheap motel. And our strategy is to do what we call a Nero in and a Nero out. And that's a near zero. So usually less than 10 miles into a town, and then we always try to leave that town. And we really feel like we need a full day off. We'll try to get a full 24 hours, which allows us the time to rest, but without spending 2 nights in a motel to give you a classic day off. And so in that hotel, we'll do shower, we'll do laundry. If there's no laundromat available, we do tub laundry. And so we wash up that way.
But when we're on trail, where we are normally, we only have one pair of clothing. So one sun shirt that we're wearing, a sweater that we'll have, and then we'll also have like one pair of shorts. We typically have a couple pairs of underwear and a couple pairs of socks. But everything else, we only have one, and that's how we keep our pack so light. And so it gets gross and stinky. But then we come into town, we wash all that stuff, and then we leave and it gets gross and stinky again the next week. So it doesn't matter. We don't carry any deodorant or any other soaps with us when we're hiking. That's all when we get into town. Just because when we're out there walking, we don't, with enough people hiking on some of these more popular trails, if everybody was washing with soap inside the streams that we're all trying to drink at, we're going to eventually contaminate the streams too. And so we've taken this high volume concept of these trails and we've just carried it across to all of our long distance trails. But
we also have extra baby wipes to clean up if we get particularly dirty. If it's really muddy, we like to get the mud off of our legs. And so in our, we call it a poo kit, we have extra baby wipes and we also pack those out as well.
So we have dry toilet paper and wet toilet paper, and the baby wipes keep you a lot cleaner than just dry out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That
I
makes
read a description of something like this in Backpacker magazine years ago, and I remember the woman who wrote the article said how her boyfriend's parents discovered what she was carrying home, and they thought it was very weird.
Uh, so,
Yeah.
So,
Thank
well,
you.
where are you going to go next after you do the trail that will bring you to Albuquerque?
Well, one of my good friends from my oldest friend is getting married in Colorado. And so we're going to take the van and head up there for his wedding in the middle of June. And then we haven't planned further than that.
Yeah.
We'll see what comes up.
But
yeah.
are you still doing trips in Europe and places like that?
We've just
Yep.
minimized those trips a little bit since 2020, and we've focused a lot more on the amount of trails that we had to do here. And
That makes
with
sense.
domestic trips, it's a lot cheaper too. And so with working the seasonal jobs, we can fit more domestic hikes in for the same amount of work as we can for international. So
Yeah, and I can tell you, I just got back from a 3-week lecture tour in Europe, and it's much more complex now than it was in 19.
oh yeah,
Oh,
Much more expensive.
Yeah.
I believe it.
I bet. Yeah.
And how often do the kids check in, moms? I mean, when do you start to get worried if you haven't heard from them? But
Cindy?
you're getting an email, you're getting a text, you're getting a call.
Yeah. When they get into towns, they text us and call us and check in, and then we're always demanding, where are you going next, in case there's some place
Uh-huh.
that we can meet them along the
A
way.
chance to rendezvous. Yeah.
Yeah, or always, asking, what can we do for you? What can we do? And sometimes it's just meet up and pile on the cookies, or sew the liners of the sleeping bags or something, and that was one
Wow.
of our treks out to near Joshua Tree National Park, and
Oh, beautiful.
Evan pulled his sewing machine out of the van and soldiered it and sewed the linings for his sleeping bags.
Oh,
So
cool.
his
Oh,
little adventures
wow.
along the way. But no, they do a good job of keeping tabs with us.
Oh,
Yeah. And also, I
Okay.
imagine the mail, the doctor's appointments, it's nice to have a home base where you can get those kind of civic-minded appointments done
yeah.
that, yeah.
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 And Tony, you had another question?
Yeah, I was going to ask about kindred spirits. You must encounter every now and then another couple, another person that you just totally resonate with, like you know each other and you know each other's experiences. Does that really happen? I would think it would.
Oh,
Frequently.
absolutely. Yeah. Um, we went on a hike with a person just the other day, and we had never met this person before, and we hiked with them for 3 days, and now we know we're gonna 5 days. Sorry, it felt like 3. Time just flew by. And if we know we're gonna be friends forever now, just because of these like shared experiences that we all have, or at least he and we have. And
I think it's interesting to note that through hike too, because it's boiled life down to the basics and the simple needs, it really helps expand friendships faster, because you're in
Yeah.
this shared experience that's really intense,
Sure.
and it just speeds up that process. Like, you don't have to go through all the small talk. You instantly have that in common. You instantly
Yeah.
have, oh, how much water do you have? How much water do you have? Can we skip this water source and go to the next one? Is there room for us all to camp at this spot? Do we need to keep hiking? And so you're just bonded faster.
nobody in
Yeah.
the woods asks what you do for work.
Skip that one.
That's anti-American, honestly.
And Sharon, you see a lot more of your kids. You get a lot more involved in their life and the details of their life than a lot of moms. I know that Paul's mother would always ask Paul, "Oh, hi, darling. How are you? What are you doing?" One word answers. It was up to me to provide
Great.
all the
I'm
details.
doing great.
Yeah. They want the texture. They want the details. They want to know. They want the intricacies, right? And you two moms get
Pass
all
the
that.
phone to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and you share in that interest. So
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah, we're really fortunate in that. And like you were talking about the mail, Mandy's, all her mail and stuff comes here. So I track all that and take care of what I can, although I do try to force her to do some life things herself. she tries to escape those life issues if she can. But yeah, it's really good. And because they do let me know where I have to send things, I know that if I haven't heard from them at a certain amount of time, you know, I know who I have to alert if there's a problem with them being out there and they haven't picked up their package that I've sent. So that makes me feel much happier about how secure
Sure.
they are out there. But
Mhm.
yeah, it is really a wonderful way to stay connected with what they think and what their life is about. And they're really good about checking in with me and seeing if I need anything since I'm by myself. So I really appreciate that. I've just had a recent issue where my place flooded. And so the one of the first things Mandy said is, do we need to come up and help? You know, so not to
Yeah.
worry, I'm fine now. The flood needed. But it's a great connectivity, and it's way more than I had with my mother. And so it really makes me happy that I have that relationship with Mandy and with Karma, you know. So
Mhm.
I'm thrilled he's part of our family now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Yep, Tony.
Oh, I'm just waiting for Sharon to write her cookbook because I eat in a fairly similar way, and I was really wondering how you do all these wonderful things, dehydrate it and have it taste good and be nourishing on the trail.
Yeah, it's a lot of experimenting. And then with every trail, Mandy changes what she wants. Every time I think I've got it down pat of what to cook and how to make it and how much for every meal, then she changes it. And this last trail was the first time I did all the food also for Karma. So that was a significant increase in the volume of how much I had to make. So I found one cookbook online that talked about how to make and dehydrate food for hikers. And that was kind of my initial Bible, if you will, for how to do this. And then I just keep expanding it. And part of it is they really like things that are spiced better. And, you know, so I throw in try to make it as spicy and tasty as I can. And because I'm making only vegan food, aside from the eggs, which by the way, I do have a great recipe for dehydrating eggs.
Interesting.
Yeah, with polenta, by the way. It's kind of odd, but they taste great, don't they, kiddos?
Yeah,
Yep.
so I actually found the book. It is Recipes for Adventure, and it's by Chef Glenn McAllister.
Yeah. Very, it really, every bit in that book is good information. So that's how I started doing it. I'm already on my second dehydrator. I burnt out one and now I'm on a second. The second one, but I just keep experimenting and then and trying to get enough protein into whatever I'm fixing is always a challenge, you know, on how many different kinds of protein that I can put into this food. And whenever I try anything new, I always take what I've dehydrated and then I rehydrate it and cook it exactly how they do on the trail to make sure it's going to work and that they're going to be okay with it. And this time it really helped. They also, after I had done all this massive amount of cooking and dehydrating, they came up and I had bought a food saver, and they came up and spent 2-3 days. And we had a massive production line going in my kitchen where we packaged everything. So then I would know when they tell me, oh, I need 5 days of supplies, I can, you know, pull out, you know, the right amount of stuff. So
That was
we're
a good
getting
question.
better all the time at it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Well,
I'm looking forward to your cookbook as well. My gosh, that's a lot of valuable information.
Unfortunately, I wing everything. I don't really use recipes. I just
Those are good. Winging
throw
it.
things in.
We'll put that on Mandy's.
You mentioned safety. What kind of danger have you encountered on the road? Getting sick or having a sprain, or humans being the most dangerous animals ever?
Thank you, Tony. I'm
or
going to let you
running
go.
into a wild animal or falling down a cliff. I mean, what kind of dangers are out there and how did you deal with them?
Yeah, we don't really concern ourselves with dangers too much out there, but we do like to live safely.
Yeah.
What it means is we look at risk in certain ways. And so like, what is our skill level? What are the environmental factors that are coming into play? And what are the human factors? And so between the three parts of the triangle, we assess how we're doing. And so like on the CDT, our biggest danger was lightning on top of ridges, because the continental divide stays on the divide so much that you're above the tree line. And this year had a lot of thunderstorms. And so we mitigated that danger by waking up earlier. So we were getting up every morning at 5 a.m. when we anticipated a thunderstorm, and we'd try and hike as many miles as we could before that afternoon thunderstorm. And then we tossed up our tarp and hid. So we were like, no, but I don't need to walk to get these miles in over this ridge. I can stay safe. I can get out of this storm in my tarp in a safer location as much as we can. It doesn't always work. One time we were going over a pass in Colorado, and we thought we could beat the storm over the pass. And, you know, at 12,000 feet, 200 feet before the pass, this storm hit, and then it just circled in this basin, and we had to squat down under our umbrellas in a bunch of willows for 45 minutes and had to wait for the storm to pass because there was just lightning everywhere. And
Storms
so,
can be exciting, though. I mean, people seek out storms just to experience them sometimes.
I'm normally on days at 12.
Nature's fury. Yeah.
I'm going to take Don and Bev have a question. I'm going to take their question.
Oh,
as well.
these are another big hiker.
Hello,
group.
Don and Bev.
Hey.
That's how we met this young couple is at your home. Get you unmuted.
It was lovely to meet them,
Yeah.
along with their mom, who we'd met for the first time in person. But one of the questions we had actually, what about sunscreen and sun clothing, like your hats? I mean, how do you kind of protect yourselves? Because you guys are out there every day.
Yeah, that's super important, actually, of a concern, because the sun is beating down on you day after day. And when you're at altitude, it's even stronger. So we typically have clothing that covers our skin as much as we can. Legs are a little bit of a different story, because you create so much friction walking all day. We normally are in running shorts or dress for Mandy. For I guess breeze, it is, you have less friction. Pants for us just cause us to have we get too warm, and so sun shirts with a hat, and normally the sun shirts have a hood to cover the back of our necks. And if for our face, we typically carry a small amount of really good sunscreen to cover our noses and our cheeks, or my cheeks. You have to get your chin.
I have to my whole face.
Yeah.
On our legs a little bit more in the beginning until the tan builds up, and then it's like a dirt, because then the sunscreen attracts the dirt, and then you're half covered in dirt, and so the dirt acts as a really good screen on your legs. But it's our hands and our faces that we use the sunscreen for, and we found some of the sunscreen wasn't working for us that we normally used, and so my mom was nice enough to go a bunch of stores to find better sunscreen and mail drop it to us this year.
Beautiful.
Wow.
That's great.
Everybody needs a mom like you too.
Yeah.
When you go to Scotland next, you can wear a kilt, Kevin. So, so you'll be very fashionable.
Yeah.
I have to wear leggings with it, because there's midges out there, and I don't know if I want midges fighting up.
Do you find the synthetic fabrics better, like Salumbra or Coolibar and some of those better? Or do you find just good old natural cotton better? We have a friend who actually was helping some shamans in Siberia, and she says she went and bought them all Gore-Tex to send them home, thinking, oh yeah, you guys here. And they wrote back and they say, it disintegrated. We like the skins of animals that we've traditionally used, because that holds up. So I was wondering if natural versus synthetic fibers are, you found one better than the other for this.
We don't use cotton unless it's maybe a sleep shirt that we're sleeping in. We do use Gore-Tex or the similar varieties of it for our rain gear. We do use a lot of like Patagonia or Marmot, a lot of those synthetics, which is maybe not the best environmentally, but they work better and they hold up for us overall. We do use wool socks. We use a brand called and those are the only socks that hold up for us in the long run.
Yeah, and merino wool is supposed to be a real good fiber now. People are appreciating. So, oh, interesting. Well, that was Siberia with below freezing weather that you're
Yeah.
not in. That the Gore-Tex didn't hold up.
And
then for
animal
these-
skins have their own environmental impact. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
but it
that's
was
true.
traditional to the culture.
Just
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely. And Don and Bev, you've done some
You've been
long.
hiking the Alps.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I mean, so
lots of
we have
places.
the elder group of hiking as well. So it's not just for the youngsters.
Yeah, although our hiking doesn't begin to match up to what these guys do.
We did hot hiking in the Dolomites of northern Italy, and then also the Dachstein circuit in Austria. But compared to these folks, it's completely
It's wimpy. Well, but I realized listening to them that with the first 2 weeks being the hardest, we just got through that and then we stopped. So we never got to the flow.
The flow state,
Still in
third
the
week.
part of it. So and I see Peggy here. She had
Peggy
raised-
was along with
yeah,
us. She and her
with
husband.
us too. And
We-
Oh, but
yeah,
Peggy-
we were the intrepid
then-
old people on
And
the trail.
we'd
but-
take breaks a few days in Salzburg for the music festival, a few days in Vienna. So we were definitely periodically in and out, but we admire you guys and
yeah.
just
Yeah,
we've done a lot of backpacking, Bev and I, in Oregon and the Three Sisters and all that, but the through hiking that's
Yeah,
impressive.
we never got to that point.
It's another level. Yeah, yeah. But hi, Peggy. I put you on as well to say hello since
Yeah,
your
hi,
name was
Peggy.
brought up. Yeah, very cool. Well, yeah. Well, go ahead.
I just think the whole physiological adaptation that you described, Mandy, is fascinating. I know that I grew up in Seattle, 0 sea level, right? Maybe 5 feet sea, I don't know. But then going to the mountains of Santa Fe at 7,000 feet was quite the challenge for me. And I found chloroxygen. The local herb shop would sell this liquid green chlorophyll. And the idea being that you put this in, chlorophyll can more easily help replace the hemoglobin in the blood and help you build up the oxygen carrying capacity of your blood. I found that maybe it was just the placebo effect. I don't know. I found that helpful. But it's interesting how you can feel your body adapting to new circumstances and new demands on it.
Yeah.
And so it didn't take that long when you go, oh, now I'm adapted to 7,000 feet. You guys are hiking up at 11,000, I heard you say.
Yes,
So, I mean, that's another layer of complexity where your blood has to, lungs have to grab more oxygen, make more efficient use of it, whatever. So the fact that your muscles are adapting, the fact that your body's redistributing where muscle goes, I need protein, I'm going to dissolve this, the catabolic versus the metabolic processes. I mean, there's so much self-monitoring that goes on that you're learning to adapt, and I need this, I'm reading my body. That's fascinating too, to have that interior process where you're listening that deeply to what your body needs and you've gotten into the groove. I'm sure it was a learning curve for the first year or so that you learned, now I know how to do this better. Do you want to describe a little bit of that?
Yeah, I'm going to release a couple people off screen.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions
you,
or
Don and
comments while
Bev.
you're up? So thank you.
Yeah,
and
and
thank you
thank
for the
you, Peggy.
introductions. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Goodbye
would
to
say
the mothers.
I mean, we're not always listening to our body to
Cindy.
that degree or needing
Why?
to for survival. I wanted to thank the moms.
I will.
Okay. Survival. So that is interesting. And the mental game of it is interesting. You talked about the small pleasures, the short-term versus the long-term pleasures. So I have those questions for you. Also, when are you going to decide to get off the road and go nest?
or
right?
never.
Or change life?
Can I follow up on that question? And
Yeah.
you asked about 7 questions, but the last question
I wanted
just
to get them all in.
you know, Laura has questions. But I wanted to mention that is something like, in other words, if I was to write you a check today and buy you a house in Denver with 2-bedroom, 2-bath house, that means that you can no longer go on your treks. Would you take the house, or would you say, no, we don't want the house? No, thank you.
No, we
No.
pass.
Pass.
Yeah. If it meant giving up the hiking for a house, yeah, it wouldn't be worth it. or the nomadic lifestyle.
Yeah.
Now, if we can
Beautiful.
Airbnb it out and then continue to go hiking, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
No, I'm not going to write the check for
But
that.
your mums wouldn't be there to hold down the fort.
Yeah, yeah. How fabulous.
You
So-
do just drive out to see the different moms and just hang out with them for months at a time or
The
weeks at a
moms.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, because all of our parents are on the West Coast, which is really convenient. So we try to at least once a year travel through and see everybody for at least a
Yeah.
week or just so we can say hi. And since we're so nomadic, we try to put it on us to be able to go to them. Luckily, my mom also has an RV, and so she's been able to leave her house and meet us on the road. And
That is so cool.
Really fun.
Yeah.
We did that too. I mean, it was important for us to actually go and stay with the parents and be there and get into their lives and hang with them, knowing we wouldn't have forever with them, right?
Mhm.
So through the years, just putting in that kind of quality time, which is so different than just going to dinner and leaving, right?
Mhm.
Experience.
Go running some errands for them and leaving. So there's something about spending that deep time.
We
Yeah.
moved in at a couple days at a time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, yeah.
But in terms of what was my original question?
I don't know. I took
Oh,
the question away.
listening to the body.
Yeah, that's a good
Well,
question.
how does the body signal you? How is the body talking to you? What do you mentioned watching the muscles grow and contract, but or disappear. Tell me more about listening to the body.
You do become very self-aware of your own body, and you become very aware of what is a normal ache and pain versus something that is becoming a problem.
Okay.
We like to say little things become big on trail. And so, for instance, a small hot spot on your foot, us after a while, we understand the self-awareness that this hot spot's going to turn into a blister if we don't stop and treat it right now. So maybe not being so self-aware, we might have just kept walking naively thinking that it will go away, but no, little things become big. So we need to stop, take these socks off, look at what's going on our feet, maybe clean it up a little bit, and then we'll continue. And that little thing might not become big, but I think you kind of become pretty self-aware of your own body, especially.
And I would add to that, we get to a point towards the evening where, we know if we can push, or we know if no, this is starting to hurt, I need to stop. Like I need the next flat-ish campsite, or, my hip is going to hurt, or my knee is hurting. And if I stop soon, it will be okay with the evening's rest. Where if I pushed it too far, it's not going to be okay. And then I'm going to have to sit in a town for a week and heal it.
Yeah, for us, we've also, we know we can feel it in our bodies when our shoes or our sandals are blown out and we need to switch them, or we know 100 or so miles before they're going to be done. And then we let Sharon know that we need new sandals, and
SOS
sandals need to come.
How many pairs of shoes have you gone through since, this is...
Oh, from the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if in the last trail we did 5 pairs of sandals each. So 10 pairs just on this one trail, and we didn't hike. So maybe 10 pairs a year, sadly, is one of our most wasteful.
Although Teva, you can print out a form and send it back to them, and they recycle them now.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Oh, Teva, that's good.
Wow.
It's a good promotion for them. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
But the food side, when we get into town, one of the first things we do is we head to a grocery store. And, being plant-based, that's the best way to get food for us for the cheapest cost is to go to a grocery store.
Yeah.
And our ideal motel has a microwave. And so we go into a grocery store, and before we think about buying food for later, we always buy food for right now. We'll literally go in, get, a pint of ice cream, a bag of chips, whatever we're craving. And that's usually
or whatever's available
and whatever we're craving. And then we'll go outside the grocery store and eat it. And we'll annihilate probably 2,000 to 5,000 calories. Then we go in and buy food for, that evening, the next morning, and lunch. And ideally we'll have a microwave, because there's a lot of vegan frozen things that you can heat up in a microwave.
Right.
And that keeps us from going to spend all the money at the restaurants, which usually doesn't have things that we want anyway.
Yeah.
And so we just listen to our body's cravings. You know, on a hot day, we can each annihilate a pint of vegan ice cream. Or,
To ourselves.
you know,
Yeah.
to ourselves. Or one day I was really craving dill pickle potato chips. And I was just, I didn't have enough salts because we ran out of electrolytes and I needed salt.
Yeah.
So I annihilated an entire family-sized bag of potato chips in one sitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But-
Well, you know, also monitoring the physiology you were talking about just previously, and I wanted to mention the breath. I mean, if you find yourself forcefully having to breathe, it means you're moving at a pace too fast. You're not in that flow state. The breath is a great way to monitor, right? How the physiology is doing on that particular day.
Yeah. So when I'm hiking uphill, for instance, I will find my breath where I will be breathing through my nose if I can. And then right as I'm starting to open my mouth and start breathing through my mouth. And
Yeah.
so I keep it in my, like breathing through my nose, but to the point of maybe a breath here and there through my mouth. And that is my perfect little spot. But finding it is hard to get in. It's hard to find that spot if you're not used to doing that.
It takes practice.
It takes practice. And but yeah, easiest way I would say, go to that point where you're starting to want to breathe through your mouth, then back up a little bit, and then go. And that's typically what I do.
I would also say we're big proponents of the hike all day, but take a lot of breaks.
A lot of small breaks.
A lot of small breaks. So we, you know, beginning, we'll, you know, do a 2-hour push and take a break, and then maybe a 2-hour push and take a break. And, you know, then the afternoon, maybe we only go hour pushes before we take, you know, 5 to 10 minutes. We sit down, we take our sandals off, even though they're not boots, your feet still
Sandals
need to
and
air
socks.
out because we hike in sandals with socks. And so we'll take our shoes off because your feet will start to swell. And so as we hike more and more, you know, we tend to do more and more 2-hour pushes. But if we're all not feeling well, it's hour pushes. Let's go for an hour.
Well, just like when you were writing your thesis, one of your
Oh yeah.
yeah, one of you.
When I was writing my grad school thesis, my mentor gave me the best advice ever when I was struggling. And she said, set a timer for every 45 to 50 minutes, and then 10 to 15 minutes of every hour, you have to do whatever you need, go to the bathroom, run around your house, make a cup of tea, switch the laundry. She was like, but no, because you know you have that break every hour, you'll focus more for that 45 to 50 minutes. And she said it came out of Disney because their employees need to smile all the time. And so their employees could smile for 45 to 50 minutes straight, knowing that they could go call their boyfriend or text their family in that 10 to 15 minute break. So they didn't have to like begrudge that time spent working.
We use that same thing. We would set a timer. Let's focus on work. Don't do anything. Focus. Timer goes off. Okay, now we have a break. Yes, we go more than 15 minutes though. Okay, and then now like get back to it. We find that really useful.
Yeah.
So you're not constantly interrupted all the time, and just so that you know, I it's like walking. One foot forward is rest. This one's resting. Now this one's walking. This one's resting. You need to alternate rest and work. Whatever it is you're doing, I think, to be more productive with the mental game. I don't want to feel like I'm working all the time. Do you ever just get totally bored and just want to go sit in a hot tub and go watch a movie and go get some city life? Do you ever go, I just want to do something totally, even how beautiful this is, just want to do something totally different.
I want to go to New York City and I want to hang out.
Or enough desert, I want to go in the, whatever it is. Do you ever just go, or like,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, more so while hiking, I don't find myself wanting to go and do some other big adventure or something like that because I'm on one at that point.
Yeah, makes sense.
And every time you kind of get into town, you get to fulfill all those cravings that you get throughout the week. So it's kind of like you have 3 to 5 to 7 days that you can think of all the things you really want or you're craving. And I make notes of what those things are, whatever it might be.
Right.
So I remember getting to town. And then when I get to town, I'm like, okay, what are those random cravings and can this town provide them? And then I'll get them.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Sometimes we go to the movies.
Yeah.
Like if a town has a movie theater, we might go see a movie.
Just a normal thing.
But
Mhm.
I mean, one time on the AT, I convinced my mom to pick us up and take us to Hershey Park so we could ride all the roller coasters. And so she came
Yeah.
up 0 day because we just got
Yeah.
tired of Green Tunnel in the Mid-Atlantic, and she took us to Hershey Park.
Well,
Do you say
Sometimes-
you carry your fears? That's a really interesting tendency. We tend to carry our fears. Do you want to explain that, Mandy?
Yeah, so that whatever you're carrying in your backpack, you can, if you're afraid of being cold, you tend to carry too many clothes. If you are afraid of, spraining your ankle or getting too many bug bites, you're going to carry a med kit that's too big and unnecessary. If you are afraid of the sun, you're going to have, sun gloves, maybe the big bottle of sunscreen that you're never going to use that much sunscreen in 7 days. Or even 3 days or whatever your section is. And so you tend to carry those fears, and hiking helps you confront those when you're like, wow, this is really heavy. My pack hurts. Why does it hurt? And then you can literally look through all your stuff. We call this a pack shakedown. And you can look, okay, well, I don't need 10 ounces of sunscreen for 3 days. I need 3 ounces of sunscreen for myself, maybe like realistically for 3 days.
Mhm.
And so you can go through and like, no, you don't need 200 ibuprofens. You need maybe 24, and that will get you to the next town where you can buy more ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Great philosophy.
So, what you know, a lot of people, you have a community of fellow through hikers and long distance hikers. Not all of them have moms like yours. How do these people do it logistically if they don't have that support system that you do?
Yeah.
Some people use a friend. Some people send all the boxes out, or like package all their boxes out and convince a friend to do it. Some people buy on trail as you go and only send some boxes. So like if we didn't have our moms helping us, we could go to one of the bigger towns and we can package up boxes from that bigger town in our motel room and send them from trail up trail.
Kind of mail it 2 or 3 weeks ahead of you from
Mhm.
the Safeway that you're at in whatever town it is.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but-
then
You
can
guys are
buy-
carrying all this stuff. You're going to a store, you're carrying it. You don't have a vehicle with you if you're not in your van.
Yeah.
You're carrying this and you're carrying it to here, and then you can. I mean, that's just walking in a town. Our towns are not like Europe. Our towns are not made for walking necessarily. So,
Yeah, sometimes it's a couple miles or a few miles through a town from one side to another to be able to go to basically go to a grocery store here, but you need to go to an Ace to get the fuel for your stove, but they're completely different sides of the town. You just walk
or you hitch a ride.
or you hitch through.
Sometimes some towns have trail angels that will give you a ride to the grocery store.
trail angels. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Small
Yeah.
buses are sometimes there, or the hotels, if they're used to hikers coming through, might have a bike that you can borrow.
It depends.
One of the things that I learned from long distance hiking is people are generally good and want to help one another. And when they see people out doing something, they're curious. And if they can help and it's not too much of an imposition, they do help. And it's a lot of fun meeting some interesting people while we're out there.
Yeah.
What's one of the most beautiful moments you both spent on the trail? What makes this all worth it in those peak moments? Describe one of those.
A peak moment. I mean, when you're like standing on top of a mountain that like nobody's around and you get a view of all the like different colors of the vistas off in the distance, all the different cascading mountains off away. Those are always my favorite moments. I just, for some reason, love those views and just do a little dance when I'm
And Mandy, for you?
I would say we call on trail, when you're in that flow zone and you're just out there exploring and you're really present, there becomes this state of synchronicity. And when you need something, you just go with the flow and it appears. So like maybe, we were really stressed in Steamboat Springs because it's a really expensive ski town. And we were unboxing 2 boxes from my mom at the post office. And we were like, how the heck are we going to get a ride back out of this town? there was just a rainbow gathering there. And so nobody was picking up hitchhikers because the rainbow peeps left a bad taste in their mouth. And we were just like, I have no idea how we're going to get a ride. And we're repackaging. And a woman comes over and is so nice. And she's like, hey, are you hiking? And we were like, yeah, we are. This is our food supply for the next week. And she was like, hey, I'm free all day. If you need a ride back to the trail, here's my phone number.
Mhm.
You know, and we're like, okay, well, we need to go eat lunch and charge our battery packs. Can we call you, around 3? And she was like, yeah, that sounds great. And as we're charging our battery packs at the, what do you call it? The like welcome center to the town.
Mhm.
Woman who was working there, she was like, I get off at 4. If you can't find a ride, I'll take you up there.
Yeah.
Things just kind of work out and it goes into a flow. And maybe you help them by giving them a story for the day. Oh, I picked up this hitchhiker.
Mhm.
Oh, I found this
Yeah.
couple at the post office.
Yeah.
You
I think
know-
that speaks to the fact that people generally are so nice and friendly. We get so much negativity from the mainstream news and things that are going on, and we all live in fear of each other, and the separation between political parties and all these things that are going on. And yet, when you comes right
in real
down to it,
life,
in
yeah.
real life, there's a connectedness. Laura and I were one day at the parking lot of her father's business, and down the
This is
sidewalk.
downtown Bellevue, Washington.
Yeah, across from Seattle.
Yeah.
Down the sidewalk comes a guy on a mural
On a
and-
donkey.
on a donkey. And we, what is this? Of course, we couldn't help but stop and go over and stop him and ask questions. We said, "Hey,
Can we
what
get you some water?
yeah,
What do you need?
who are you?
And
What
we
are you
did
doing?"
exact that.
He goes, I just finished my PhD program at some university in California, and I decided I really want to experience life.
At 3 miles an hour.
Yeah, 3 miles an hour on a donkey,
Yeah.
and he left California up to Seattle, go on his way to Canada.
Up that mountain trail.
Yeah, and we said,
Pacific
oh,
Coast
oh,
Trail.
well, you probably need a place to stay. You can come. No. I never have a problem with a place to stay. Everybody offers me to come to their home.
And wants to feed me and the
and wants to
donkey
feed me
and wants to
food
hear
and take
my
care of me.
stories.
And it's like, wow,
Yeah.
that is such an amazing journey. What a smart way to graduate
And
university.
talking of synchronicities, I remember we had a chat, we're talking about things, and he goes, he pulls out this little notebook and he writes down a key word because he'd heard it 3 times that day. So he figured it was important.
Yeah.
And so he pays attention. And he said that there's so much you can see of life at 3 miles an hour that you can't when you're whizzing down a road in a vehicle.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
It was such an enchanting moment.
Yeah.
So I understand the
road less
fascination
traveled,
of the people
yeah.
that you meet. Yes, you indeed have stories to share.
Oh,
Um,
Tony said he has one more question. I want to.
Sure, and I want to thank the moms too.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, Tony.
Well, Mandy just mentioned sort of the synchronicity that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's an experience that I've had over and over again when I've been hiking and looking for a place to sleep. And very often there's a beautiful flat meadow and it doesn't feel quite right. And I end up sleeping on a 30-degree grade. And then I'll walk down the next morning and I'll see there's a nest of rattlesnakes there. Or in one case, it was a blue sky day, but a storm 80 miles away flooded down the arroyo.
Oh.
So there are little things like that, you would think, oh, beautiful, soft place to sleep. No. So I've always paid attention and I've never gotten in trouble.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that's sort of part of what you talked about with the synchronicity.
Intuitively, synchronicity.
Yeah. Can I tell one quick story?
Sure.
Please, do. Doesn't have to be quick. Yeah.
So we were on the Hayduke Trail and we found that soft, perfectly flat, sandy spot kind of towards the bottom of a canyon. And we
Yeah.
stopped a little early because it just looked like the perfect campsite. And also because we had a 3/4 mile scramble out of the canyon and we didn't want to do that in the dark. And so we set up, we ate, and we were cowboy camping, so no tent. We didn't even have a bug net on that trail because we were trying to save weight because we had to carry so much extra water. And all of a sudden it got dark and we were reading a book out loud, or we were listening to an audiobook to pass some time before we go to bed. And then all these eyeballs started poking out of the grasses around, and
We
were
had
like,
our headlamp on and
they were reflecting. And then I looked over and there was a scorpion coming towards us. And so we like freaked out, grabbed a rock and moved some sand. And then the rock I picked up to like throw the scorpion away, a scorpion came like zombieing out of the sand.
like a zombie out of the grave.
And then these spiders started to go crazy, though, huge spiders. And I can't tell you how fast we packed up. At like, 8:30 at night, we packed all of our stuff up. And we were like, through this, we are going to scramble out of this canyon in the dark until we find a flat enough ledge to sleep on.
A ledge of rock. Yeah.
About 200 feet, found a ledge that was flat enough. And we camped there and slept fantastically.
Wonderful.
There is something though about sensing your environment and paying attention to the cues and those signals, even though they don't make intellectual or logical sense.
Right.
One of my best stories was we had this little tiny car and we're leaving the house to go on a trip, and I'm looking at where the car is parked. I go, Paul, that doesn't feel right. Could you move the car to the other side? We were leaving. We weren't going to take the car. We were leaving, getting picked up. But I'm like, this doesn't feel right. So he knows enough not to argue. He's going to spend more time arguing than he would to move the car. And so he moves the car, and we come back home. There was a storm, and a huge branch of a tree right there where the car was. It would have squashed it like a bug. And so we saved our car because of following an intuitive prompting. So we've learned you follow those.
100-mile-an-hour winds one time in Seattle. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Another
so
question I'm
interesting
dying to ask,
this.
if I could. What is your weight allocation for each of you? Is it the same or different? And how many pounds or kilos do you carry?
Like on our backpacks, yeah. Normally we try to do about a quarter of our own body weight. So that would be whatever it would be. So I'm around 150 pounds. So it would be a quarter of my body weight would be in like the 35-ish range for a backpack. And so hers would be a little bit lower than that because she's closer to 100 pounds or so. So hers would, if she was carrying the exact same weight as me, she would be burning more calories. So we try to make it so it's correct for our own body weights.
However, being a couple, one of the benefits is if one of us is hurting a little more for whatever reason, we can move weight around.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes if like I'm struggling with altitude, he'll take a little bit more weight for a while. Or in the Grand Canyon, he got really excited and looked up too much and then got a kink in his neck for 4 days. So I carry more weight.
Should have just taken pictures, but I was so excited looking around, and all of a sudden.
So we generally carry certain things, but it does get flexible if one of us is hurting or just struggling one day.
It's fluid. It's never the exact same, but yeah.
I'm just going to say, I could not do what you do. I could not take the mental game. I could not carry that much weight. I could not take the constant
My wife is a
walking.
sissy.
Okay, my mother would call us hothouse flowers. You kids, I grew up in a farm. You are all hothouse flowers, right? You've just raised in a bubble of luxury, and that we've given you to. It's interesting. So I want to applaud you both for doing what you do. I want to get your moms back on and thank
you, Tony.
Thank you for sharing your stories, Tony. Always
Yeah.
good. You should take him up on. He's a wonderful host. You should take him up on his offer.
He's a
I'm
adjunct
fascinated.
professor at University of New Mexico.
So, but I just want to say,
Interesting.
I appreciate people doing things that I will never do. I appreciate people having the research or having the experiences I will never have and sharing them and sharing the inside story on them. So,
So you want to say goodbye to the parents as well here?
Yeah, and thank you. Thank you, moms, for supporting the alternative lifestyles of your kids and being there for them in that way.
I think that's inspirational because it's a new generation. We grew up in a different generation
with
and
different expectations.
Parents had different rules and expectations.
My parents thought we were crazy and wild doing what we do, and it was so mild.
I'm not putting anybody on the spot, but Christine and Todd Van Poel bringing up their children, both of them being professors of anthropology, having this new open kind of thinking where the kids are allowed to express themselves and explore avenues of thinking that just wasn't available to us in our generation as much. So it's wonderful to see each generation doing this exploration and growth and really.
I say get out and adventure how you can, when you can, how you want. Do it now, right? Life is short. No guarantees.
I'm really happy that we had the synchronicity of being at Bev and Dawn's. And have Mandy being able to come and spend those days with us and have the vegan potluck. And then then meeting you two, and then it into this wonderful interview. So the synchronicities are everywhere.
There you go. Wonderfully said.
Thank you for that.
And Sharon saying.
And Sharon, when are you coming out to Sedona and playing with your kids here.
Well, they're
'Cause
not
I hear
here
they
now.
spend a
They're
lot of
not
time
here
in
now.
Arizona.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, the next trip together, I'm going to that wedding in Colorado in June with our old neighbor's son. So we're
Oh.
going to spend some time together playing
Okay.
around in Colorado.
Beautiful.
That's
Well,
sweet.
thank you both. I'm going to go ahead and have a final goodbye to.
Good
to-
job.
yeah.
Good job supporting the kids.
You know, this discussion for us is off the trail a bit. You know, you're the off the trail
We need to
hikers.
go off trail.
This is an off the trail
Yeah.
discussion, but at the same time, it still was within the scope of everything that we talk about. But it's a new adventure for us, a new discussion, lots of education, things that we did not know about, and so it's been wonderful. And I really
Not off the trail
applaud.
as much as you think, because again, this capacity for long distance traveling by foot is something that most people aren't really utilizing in our day and age. It was well utilized in earlier societies.
We said that,
not
yeah.
so much today. And I find that's interesting how we're carrying on some of these traditions in new ways.
Yeah.
Right? We're designed for this, and you guys are doing this, traveling, and we're all explorers. There's just something about we're just explorers in our species.
So Mandy and
And we
Kevin,
celebrate
final
that.
thoughts?
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having
We had
us.
so much
And
fun.
yeah, no, we go into the backcountry to just go and see all these beautiful things. It's in your backyard too. It's down your streets. It's like
Yeah.
open yourself up to seeing the wonderfulness around you, and yeah, and you'll see it.
Well, we got the overflow table because it was a full community of people. So it ended up being the four of us sitting at a table. And that's how this whole discussion began. And like everyone, you and Tony and everybody were talking about synchronicity. It's real, it happens. And it's an avenue of science that continues to
Part
be
of the quest.
an enigma, but
Guiding
needs to
us
be
in life.
explored. Absolutely.
Yeah, indeed.
And thank you for paying attention to those signals. Yeah, wonderful.
Thanks for being here with us today. Happy trails.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Happy trails. Bye.
All right. Take care, everybody. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
All right.